I'll do this, and then so the first one I went right to the website one, and then I visited the link tree, and I have the rest up too. Um, did you want to talk perhaps first about your abstract landscapes? Maybe what inspired you, your choice of media and such?
I can do that.
Yeah.
So seeing as you're on the website anyway. Yeah, so I live in a beautiful place. It's just all year round. The light is beautiful, the nature's beautiful. I'm out with the dog most days, so
Yeah.
I can't help but it kind of hits you, and sort of around the face. Just
Yeah,
amazing
absolutely. Yeah,
feelings.
I love
Okay,
this first one already. Yeah.
so
Um,
Respair, I painted in January, and it's quite an important piece for me because Respair is another word for hope. It's
hmm
the opposite of despair.
hmm
And when I painted it, it was just the light breaking through the clouds. And, January was a bit of a dire time for everyone, kind of not knowing
Yeah.
what was happening this year. And it just kind of, as I was painting, it just felt like it was just growing into something that was going to be beautiful. So that's why it's called Respair, and it's a really big piece. It's a 1 meter by 1 meter piece.
Yeah, the size or like the sense of scale kind of comes through in the way the photograph on the is fairly large and in very good resolution. I mean, you can see the texture here and so yeah, if you don't mind me asking a bit more about your process,
Sure.
you mainly use brush on canvas, or is there some perhaps
There's, there's,
some yeah
there's all sorts. I love transparent mediums, so I
yeah
use quite a lot of sort of gloss mediums and matte mediums to carry the acrylics or inks.
yes
And underneath that, you'll often get some charcoal, gesso and charcoal mix to give me some kind of ground.
yeah
Sometimes I use PVA glue and inks over that and let it dry for days and get fantastic patterns and textures through that.
oh, I love that
And then I usually finish it off in oil pastels, just to give like a little bit of definition.
yeah.
Um, and it's just quite a strange mix of things, but it seems to kind of work. And it's that one's on canvas, but a lot of my work's on paper.
Very
Um,
nice, very nice. Do
yeah.
you ever experiment with on wood panel?
I have done some on wood panel. I find it a much harder, like it's less forgiving.
Oh yeah, okay.
Um, but I've done quite a few on wood panel. They're great because you can post them out and you don't have to fuss around with sort of major packaging, which is great.
Fair
But
enough.
I prefer canvas or paper.
Very nice. I think this is a wonderful piece. Let me go down here. This one here, Moonlight Connections. Tell me a bit more about this one. This is also very, very good work.
So basically, up here, autumn time, you get the northern lights or aurora. But
When you say
also,
up here, pardon my ignorance, the location is more or
right,
less.
I'm on the no, I'll tell you, it's fine. I'm on the Isle of Skye, which is northwest Scotland.
Okay, beautiful.
Um, it is very stunning.
Yeah,
But in summer you get long sort of ambient nights, and in winter you get very long
yeah.
very long dark nights, and it's very cold.
hmm
And as soon as it gets cold, you get that kind of the atmosphere, that the moonlight and the aurora and everything through the clouds. But I think what the sort of paradox for me is that everywhere you go, there are these little sheds and sort of dilapidated houses and ruins, and there's all sorts of past that comes through. So
hmm
I tend to take loads of photos of old sheds and things,
hmm
but a lot of them at one stage have been connected to the electric pylons. So you'll find really dilapidated things, and then the wires are still there.
I can
And
see now that you're mentioning it. The more you're telling me, the more the image is revealing itself. I can see the wires now running at the sort of phone mast. Yeah,
yeah, so and that's very much I just sort of get color onto a page and things start to appear, and I kind of feel, yep, the pylons are there or the fence is there and the moonlight is there. And for me, this was very much about, you've got this beautiful natural light, and
hmm
then at some stage that little shed or byre, as they're called in Scotland, was actually something that somebody lived in, and it was properly connected. So
yeah.
yeah, a little story.
No, that's wonderful. And again, the sense of layering and mark making that's done with yeah, not only brush, but it seems like you're scratching into the paint again, or the ink, or perhaps you know, like there's very defined lines and kind of patterns that are being built up. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Now let me scroll further down. I have to admit, I did a bit of browsing prior to, and I was very impressed with what you have, the variation of themes. This one again, a landscape of your native location, your hometown, your surroundings.
Sort of juxtaposed with the idea of over on the East Coast, you get a lot of old harbors,
Yes,
and I absolutely love these old stone harbors and everything, you know, in the past congregated around them. So you'll have warehouses on top of churches, on top of dwellings, on top of little hotels, and it all kind of happens together.
that's
And
so
that was
funny.
the sense of things for me.
Because I'm located currently in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So these East Coast kind of harbor scenes, that's my day to day when I'm driving down
Right.
the road. Um,
So it's familiar.
very familiar, a different kind of, but very familiar, exactly. And then uh, correct me if I'm mistaken, but here in Back and Beyond, there's almost elements of text or collage underneath in some
Yeah.
areas.
When you look at it on I've done an NFT version of this one as well, and written a
Hmm.
bit more of a story about it.
Okay.
Um, for me, it's very much, you know, you're walking through the landscape. You've got like the rivers and, you know, the sky and all these different things, but you've also got a very modern sort of connection. The wind blows the newspapers and things up against the gorse.
Oh yes.
There's a real sense of, you know, here and now. There's just the normal day-to-day debris sort of
Yes.
on top of everything else that's been and gone and is. So that's why it's there.
I think that's wonderful. Is it then found material while you're out on your walks, or do you then perhaps select these
I'd love
passages?
to say it was, but I have a studio full of bits and pieces. So
Yeah,
whatever
okay.
comes to hand.
Whatever comes to hand. That's lovely. I love these as well. These still lives of floral scenes or bouquets. Are you always using? Perhaps I should see acrylic. Yes. Do you ever experiment with oil?
I've done some oils. Actually, the one before with the houses and things, that there was a lot of cold wax and oils in those.
Okay. Yeah.
So you know, again, I love experimenting. I have just kind of everything, and if it works and it happens, I'll use it. So
I think that's brilliant. I think you should not limit yourself to one specific thing. There's no that I think it's perhaps an older school of thought that's outdated, that you have to focus on this one thing only, and if you don't, then you failed. I think it's wonderful to be multi-diverse and trying these
it's not.
different.
I say it's not even something I think about. It's just I just love things that have got colors and things
Absolutely.
kind of arrive in the studio, and I'll try anything once. You know.
Yes. I think that's fantastic. Uh, these ones here almost again like watercolor like or ink. The in the left upper left corner, these sort of washes that you're getting is a very very nice effect for this like dreamlike sky, um, never ending gorge. Beautiful. And these are all from within the last few years, or are some of these
Yeah,
pieces? Yeah, these are.
all of these pieces are new. Well, within the last 6 months or so, six
Oh,
to eight
you've been
months.
very busy. You've been very
Um,
busy. That's amazing.
it's quiet here in the winter, so you know, sort of from after Christmas through to about April, I get some really good quality time. So
Yeah, no, so like moving on then here, I see it. So this links to the Instagram. I had the other link here. Now the island, are these somewhat these are the same sort of pieces here. This one is the
yeah,
one that we saw. Yeah, okay.
so yeah,
But there's some that we didn't.
that series is pretty much taken from my abstract work. I've done a little bit of digital work into them to make them kind of also different and make them one-to-one, which I think is really important.
Right.
And I've told the story slightly differently, so that I'm hoping it connects better with the audience, different audience.
Different audience, absolutely, yeah. So I see, yeah, there is a description. I got you, yeah, okay. Yeah, but these are very, very. I'm trying to see why my computer is having a moment loading these. There we go. These are a little different than what we just looked at. This one here, for example, is a very, very nice one as well. More of a lakeside. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, so we call them a loch or a lake here, and
Mm-hmm.
there's water everywhere here. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whether it rains every day or there's water around you, it is an island, and
Right.
that one particularly is just a sense of the fact that you can't help but see water.
These are very, very, very good. I think it's marvelous how you can get lost in the orchestra of patterns and marks and shapes.
Oh, that's so
Uh,
nice.
I think that is very wonderful. Now, let's have another look. Here's something that I wanted to ask you more about these two here: Kitty, the cat, and the cookie, and Melody and the dandelion. What's the little story behind these?
Oh, right. Well, many years ago, I used to do loads of pen and ink drawings,
Right.
sort of waitressing and in hospitality. And then when we're talking quite some time back, and I'd often
Yeah.
sit and scribble little things. And I've got loads of these drawings. And I found that now, I'm often in spaces at night, quite late in the evenings after a long day. And I've kind of picked it up as something I can do at the computer, learning Photoshop. And just discover that I can use the same style of drawing, but completely digitally. And they are really a sense of playfulness. This gets,
Yeah.
bare honesty. Kitty and the cat. The idea that she's come home, she's in her own space, she's with things she loves, and it's just life the way it is. Shining bright, and just in that completely zone of between the crazy things, just
Yeah.
being yourself.
Well, and I think it's such an interesting style, or how do you say, the way you're the high contrast, and then the three-dimensionality of the room, but actually the table is very two-dimensional. So is the cat, and that I think that juxtaposition is very, it draws me in a lot. I think that's really playful, like you say.
Yeah, I want people to smile when they see these. There's a silliness about them, but they I love pattern and just taking the color out of it was quite interesting for me as well.
That I was gonna say, right? So the opposite of the the saturation of color here, pretty much just the light bulb and the light it's shining on the ground is perhaps the cookie, I guess, but
Yeah.
everything else being black and white. I think again it creates a wonderful effect. Let me look at the other one a bit more. Um, Here, this one here, Melody. And so these are just moments from your day to day that you've imagined, no particular.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Melody and Dandelion, I love the idea that you could have friends who are discussing all kinds of things. It's really honest. And maybe that kind of idea that when you wake up from a dream and you've got all these kind of ideas floating around in your head, and kind of there might be waves and lighthouses and, random sea urchin, and
Yes.
nothing fits together, but it kind of does.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and you've just got a good feeling about something. And that's kind of what I wanted to, kind of get across with them.
Because it's a very interesting imagery. I mean, the sort of growing up by the ocean side here, this tale of lighthouses, mermaids, and I love actually the way you did the urchins with the dots, almost they like these small galaxies or something. That's it is very, very interesting. The stars, the sea stars underneath their feet too is very good. They filmed a movie around here called The Lighthouse with Robert Pattinson and William Dafoe, and that was quite a nice art film. So this reminds me of it a bit. Very, very good work, Liz. Now, let me ask you some questions about interludes.
Yeah.
These are figures. Was it not you that you were doing portraits based off of the conversation? Maybe I'm
Yeah,
remembering wrong.
that was where I started my kind of NFT journey. So.
Right. And so is interludes part of that journey?
It isn't really. You know, that beginning was very much about me assessing, you know, everybody that I was meeting and trying to sort of fathom out who they were and so on.
Right.
Getting a little bit braver as I've gone on. These are very much about, there were two collections. So the first collection with this was Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, which sort of preceded this.
Okay.
And it was much about letting go of, you know, preconceptions and letting go of things in the past.
I have
And
it
these are
pulled
very
up here.
much, yeah, there we
This
go.
one here, Elise, yeah.
Yeah, just you know, so that was quite important for me because it was quite an emotional kind of journey and saying, okay, you know, we've got to put some things away here to move forwards. And it's quite a spiritual kind of idea. And then, you know, the other collection kind of follows that, which is more about giving and receiving. And all of the ones in interludes are about this idea of giving something and receiving something.
Interesting. And now something more or less emotions or perhaps also physical, because I'm seeing the fish, the pearls, and these objects within.
Well, you know, Provide and Conquer, the one with the fish, is really about the idea that a plate of food is a ubiquitous idea of, you know, you get fish go back to biblical times, but also you know, just a plate of food to somebody could change someone's life, and just providing something that someone needs, however small it is, can make a difference. And I love the idea of, you know, you can have a mother and a child, and, you know, you can conquer all kinds of things by just giving a small thing, and a teacher and a student, and that whole kind of concept. So she's much about, you know, giving something small and it just conquers all things.
That is such a beautiful sentiment and message. I'm so grateful to hear your take on these pieces, because I mean, of course, you know, the viewer could always interpret anything, but I find it so refreshing to hear it from the artists themselves.
So, Pearls of Wisdom, again, is about little things in abundance. We're forever saying things like, oh, you know, you see someone who's tired, you go, look, go and have a sleep. Well, you know, it'll be fine in the morning. Have a cup of tea. It's always, or, you know, you offer a little bit of advice, and it may be just a tiny sentence that resonates. And if they're ready to receive that little bit of advice, then it'll make a real difference to them. And it's the pleasure of giving that advice, but also receiving that. You know, sometimes it's just such a small thing someone says, and it just makes your day. So Pearls of Wisdom is really about that kind of concept.
Oh, I think that, again, such a wonderful and wise message. I love that. Open all hours. Tell me a bit more about this.
She's kind of one of my favorites. So I was a little bit inspired by the whole neon rain idea. So the colors kind of went along those lines, but it became something else for me as well. You know, this idea that we should be here all the time, engaged all the time, you know, sort of the whole digital world is open all hours. And it's a little bit grungy, a little bit, you know, graffiti. There's a little bit of sense of something a little bit dark going on with that.
Slightly subculture.
Absolutely. And then the dove is there to say, look, that's my representation of making peace with yourself and saying, look, you know, I mean, I'm an ager. I can't do this all hours, you know. So it's like being okay with that, you know, wear the funky boots, you know, do all the great stuff, but be okay with, you know,
be okay with some self-care, absolutely.
Absolutely. There's a thermos flask in there. That's very much about, you know, going on a journey, and it might be a long journey, so you take some provisions with you. The apple is a kind of sustenance. So again, we can go right back to Adam and Eve, or we can go apple for the future, or, you know, but there's a sense of sustenance with the apple. And the biscuit is because we should all have a little reward at some stage. So,
A
you know,
little
so
reward.
a little reward.
A little
So
treat.
there we go.
Oh, that's so lovely. I think and you're telling me all this. I know that there's a small description, but it's so nice to hear your voice and telling these stories. May I ask you a bit about this last one?
Yeah. Tea is, I guess, it's a sense of sharing. You know, we share loads of ideas. I speak to people, you know, in DMs and so on. We're forever, you know, back and forth. And especially when you've not met people, and this idea that you're still sharing so much. And I think she came about in that kind of way. But it's also very much about, you know, it's maybe it's a very English thing or British thing, I don't know, but that making a cup of tea is just, there's an art to it. It's a beautiful teapot because she's chosen not, you know, just to make a proper pot of tea and to share it with someone. And she's offering it, and she's, you know, sort of saying, look, that this is just that little gap where you share something and it's special. So that's tea.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. And so, are these interludes perhaps? Could they also be viewed as different versions of yourself, or are they characters all separate from each other when you say, you know, because simply they are all female figures, correct?
I think, I mean, I can't deny it's like I'll have a thought and, you know, about something, and the painting happens quite quickly after that.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think, you know, I think everything I paint has a little part of me in it, and not in a physical way, but certainly in the thought and the process that goes with it. Absolutely.
It's interesting. I ask simply because I've done these little interviews with people now over a few months now. You know, once a week or every 2 weeks, whenever time permits it, and schedules of both parties allow it. But answers have been given sometimes like, you know, no, not at all. It has zero connection to my personal life or what I represent or believe in. This is just something I make. So I out of curiosity, I was interested to see what your response would be. So if we move on just a bit to down the line here to your Instagram, these are more or less the same that we viewed, but then there's a bit more coming down the line here, and the work. Let me ask you this, perhaps: how long have you been making visual art? Your entire life?
Forever.
Forever. Same here. Yeah. Okay. As long as I can remember. Yeah.
There's never been a point where I can't, I think, oh, I wanted to do something else. You know, I've done lots of things, but it's always something I've come back to.
Absolutely. No, and I see here there's some very nice. I love using ballpoint pens. Do you have a certain process that you do preliminary drawings before going to the canvas, or like you say, quickly do you jump right in?
I just do what works. You know,
What works?
I've got millions of sketchbooks, but I don't often go back to them and say, oh, that's something I'm going to, you know, an idea I'm going to develop.
Okay.
You know, it's just things lurk around, and you know what happens.
Whatever comes to life comes to life.
Yeah.
No, and I think there's a very interesting. You have these amazing playful characters and figures here with the crow. Misinformation. I think we may have spoken about this one time during Spaces. I think this is again, you know, compared to the landscapes that you do, so different, but you know, so good yet so amazing.
I think again, it's just if I've got the time and an idea arrives, you know, sometimes it's quite an urgent thing to get it down and painted. And you know, at the moment when I painted her, it was very much like it felt like paper jets. You know, sometimes you hear so many bits of information and nonsense information. The same with these. I painted them at the same time, and it's just it's just overwhelming what you take in, what you throw away, you know, which ideas resonate. And I kind of had a little moment in the studio with trying to explore that idea.
Oh, I think that's fantastic. Again, sometimes, and this is from conversations with other artists, the uh, the desire for perfection, or perhaps to realize the painting in a way that we imagine, it hinders us from completing it in a timely manner. I remember one of my classmates during my fine arts degree, he tried to share his little pearl of wisdom, like you say, that sometimes the first line or mark you make is perhaps the best. There's no
Sure.
need to go and edit and alter and erase and just leave it and do them, keep going. I don't
I'm
know if
very
you'd
much
agree with
about
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And often that first mark just defines everything. You put it down with the first color and you go, yep, that's where I'm going.
That's the road, the fork down the road that we'll choose.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you, I see here, so a lot of paper. Do you do you ever experiment with something that is completely new? I mean, let's say um, printmaking, or top of my head, if working with fabric, or perhaps anything like that you've wanted to try that you hadn't, or something like that, perhaps.
My studied background was, industrial design and textile design, quite
Oh,
some years.
okay. So you're
So I've
familiar
got
with that.
a very mixed background. So you'll see pattern in my work, but you'll also see quite technical things. It's just, as it comes.
Yeah, as it comes.
Papier mâché, something I absolutely love. Somewhere
Yes.
on there are some heads that I've done.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay, yeah.
and I don't know how far back they are, but love doing that.
The sculptural work as well it does, you do enjoy that too.
And it's just what time allows. I do have, a job as well.
Yes.
So I'm not 100% in the studio. So I've got
Mm-hmm.
to really just do what I can when I can. And
I think that's fantastic, though. Your
fast and
level of
furious.
Yeah, your level of devotion, though, and again, how much of the time that you do have available that you apply to your craft is inspiring. And these are the moments that I find always push me right back to the drawing board after conversations like this with like-minded, kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah, it motivates me to say, okay, well, I better go make some marks, put some color down on something, and
It feels good.
it feels good. Well, and I mean, there's no time like the present, right? Father time perhaps may be my worst nemesis, and I'm always worried that I'm not using the time I have wisely.
Yeah.
I like this one a lot too. These patterns here. That's very nice. This is not some of the textile work you were perhaps talking about, was it? I'm looking here.
Not so much. Textiles is something that I left behind quite a long time ago, but just the way I work, pattern comes into everything. So
I think that's lovely, and I mean, you see, there is already here. We're already kind of like a half hour in. I just wanted to see how far down I could scroll. Some heads here. Are these the heads that you had mentioned?
So those are some of them, and they're just in the kind of raw state. And I think on the website there might be one. I'm not sure if there's anything on Instagram. Now that I'm looking back, I haven't scrolled that far back in ages. So.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, it's again for the
there
archival. There is some here. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, very fun. Very fun. Papier mâché is a great way to be playful. I find to be, it brings back that childlike experience for me.
And there's a time thing about it as well, because it's not instant. There's the layers and the drying time. So they can lurk for quite a long time before the next layer goes on or something happens. And it's quite a nice process, just having something there that may or may not be worked on at any given time. I like that.
I see what you mean. Yeah. It's sort of on standby. Mm-hmm. Oh no, I think the work you have is very, very beautiful. I'm excited to see. What are you working on currently? Maybe I can ask you that before we say goodbye for today. What is your most recent endeavor?
I'm working on another one for Interludes and Quietudes.
Okay.
So, and another one for the landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some fairly nightmarish faces for something else. I'm not quite sure where they're going yet, but everything's been very, very gentle up to now. So I've done some
Halloween is coming up, so you could give us a
slightly
good fright.
scary. So
Okay.
it is going to be whatever happens, you know.
Well,
We'll
I
see.
think it's wonderful that you're so inspired and that you're so motivated, because it has been a tumultuous time for everyone, and it's refreshing to see that it hasn't slowed you down now in recent times with all the work that you've presented and put out.
Okay, it keeps me sane.
Yeah, I would no, same here. It's my meditative process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good
Okay.
to
Well,
have. It's good to have it.
it is, and I think that's the thing. I mean, perhaps on a final note, despite not everyone being a visual artist, but I think a lot of people perhaps have a creative inclination of some sort, maybe writing or music or this or that or dancing. Expressing yourself is therapeutic.
And so important. So
Absolutely, yeah, no, so important. Regardless of one's primary occupation, I hope people find the time and inspiration to express themselves and be creative. I think it's good for all of us, and I appreciate your time today. I know it's late for you now, but perhaps we can do this again when you have some more time. And I'm currently moving to Montreal in order to bathe a bit more in arts and culture. And I think that'll be very refreshing to connect and broaden the network of artists that we're all interacting.
Sounds fantastic, and it's been a great opportunity to do this, because it's a bit different for me, so it's good.